everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're still watching my videos, thank you so much. I know I haven't uploaded anything in the summer, so I want to pick up YouTube again, but in this summer I didn't have the time because of all of the working, and I have worked a lot to save up money for my next school year. So this year I am starting my two master programs, health science and philosophy, and it's starting this Monday. So it's quite exciting because in the Netherlands now you can go to school again and you don't have to work from home or study from home. So that means that I would see the university and could participate in classes again. So yeah, I can't wait. But I also, like I said, want more time for YouTube and for reading and language learning because in June, yeah, this summer, like June, July, and August, especially August, I didn't have a lot of time, and I tried to focus on Japanese, and I have read some books which I'm going to discuss in this video. But yeah, I just didn't have the time to also make YouTube videos. So I'm sorry, and if you're still watching my channel, thank you, and I hope you keep on enjoying, and I will try to make more videos. And yeah, for now I'm going to talk about everything that I have read this summer, like I said, and it's not a lot. It's 6 books, but there are some 5-star reads between them. And the first one that we're going to discuss is a quite popular one because I think everyone who is on BookTube or who is following a Bookstagram and is into books this year have seen this book somewhere. And I'm talking about Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And yeah, I have seen this book, I think, everywhere, and everyone was recommending it. And because I love Japanese books and I want to read as much Japanese books as I can, I just wanted to have this one. I really like the cover. Yeah, this is the first book that came out in 2015, I think. Yes, 2015. So it's quite recent. And then, because it was such a success, I think the author have written or have published the second book, which is just more stories in the same setting as the first book. I haven't read this one. I think I'm going to save it up for next year because yeah, I have a lot of other books that I want to read, and even though I liked the first book, it's not as great as I had expected it. So the second book I will just read it some other time. I gave this one 3.5 points out of 5 because yeah, even though the story is quite interesting. I will tell the story later. But there are some things missing, especially with the characters. Missing for me at least. So I know a lot of people love this book. I just didn't love it enough to give it 4 or 5 stars. So it takes place in Tokyo, in this cafe, and in this cafe you can just drink coffee. It's a very random, normal cafe. It doesn't it doesn't stand out, or it doesn't it isn't very luxurious, or I don't know. It's just a very standard cafe. But if you know what to look for, you can find some very extraordinary things in this cafe, or things, people, and situations. You can get yourself in very extraordinary situations. And what this cafe can do is travel in time. So you can time travel in it. But there are a lot of rules. So a lot of people don't know it, and they just pass this cafe by and they don't go in. But certain characters that we are going to meet in this book, they're coming into the cafe with a specific goal to travel time. So they can go into the future or into the past. And of course, people are doing that with certain expectations, with certain goals. And that's when the funny part comes in. The travel time, there are a lot of rules that you have to follow, so it's very difficult. um and that's what this book is about. So you have this cafe where the the workers of the cafe are very friendly, and well, they're not super friendly. They're a little bit weird and strange and just all over the place, and you don't really get to know them, but some of them are described in very interesting ways. So that's what I'm missing in this book. I hope there would be more descriptions of the people who are working in the cafe, what kind of people they are. And I think that it was just too little. It's a very small book, so I mean, yeah, how much can you describe? But I was just missing a little bit of depth in the characters, and also the people who went into the cafe to travel time. I miss their stories too. Um, More about them and not about their story, but more about themselves. So not a lot of character development, and that's something that I really like in books. So I think that's why I didn't like it that much. But the story itself is quite intriguing because, yeah, time traveling. I do not read a lot of books about time traveling. I don't like science fiction, but this doesn't feel like science fiction. It's more yeah, I don't know, this very relaxing and atmospheric book. So yeah, I think I had a lot of this kind of atmospheric books in the summer. But if you just want to relax and read a very, it does have sad parts, but most of the time it's a very light book to read. I would suggest this one. The next book, I only can say like very positive things. It's also a book that I got recommended from, I think, BookTube. At least this writer I got recommended for BookTube, and it's The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I finished this book, I think, in 2 days, something like that. Well, in one day even. I see. And I couldn't just stop reading it. It's so good. And like I said, the writer was recommended by this YouTuber that I always watch, and she recommended another book, which was The Broken Wings. I have read it in April. I loved it. It was very beautiful. Gave it also 5 stars. And then I started looking the writer up, and I understand that The Prophet is his most popular work, most known work. So I had to have it. I had to read it. I love this cover, which is from Penguin Classics. I think it's very beautiful. And also the inside of the book comes with pictures, which are very nice for the story. So something like this. And The Prophet, if you don't know it, I would highly recommend to read it. Doesn't matter what kind of books you like. I think almost anyone would like this book, because again, it has this atmosphere, relaxing atmosphere. It's very spiritual, and it's even, you can use to teach yourself some things in life. So it's about a man, a prophet, who is going away from this village, and he's saying goodbye to all of the people in the village and taking his time for it. And then all of the people come by and ask him questions. They ask advice from him, and the advice that he gives is very specific for like all kinds of specific subjects, like love, death, children, like all of those things that are very important in our lives. The people ask advice and he gives it, and it's very poetic. How the writing style is very poetic, so it reads very easily, and it's not too long of a book, but there are a lot of things that are so beautiful. And I think it's not translated because Khalil Gibran wrote this in English, and that is something that I love, because then you're reading like the actual words that the writer has chosen. I love reading original work and not translated. No, it's not translated. First published in the United States of America by Knopf in 1923. So a long time ago. But yeah, it's an original language. I think it's very beautiful, and there was one thing, one advice that I found like very, very nice, and I wanted to read it out loud for you guys. So in here, it's here. In here we have someone who is asking him advice about love, and he tells it's just like 1.5 page about love, and the end, it's very like aspiring, I think. He talks about relationships, and he says, "Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts, and stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow." So yeah, I think who can write it like this? It's very, very nice. And the whole book like was like this, so a lot of just very interesting advice. I think it's something that you can use in your own life, and I think this kind of book is something that you can reread. I would like to reread it many times, but you can reread it many times, and I think you can always find something new, something that you have missed before. So doesn't matter what kind of books you like. It's not very philosophical, it's not difficult to read, it's not too poetic that you don't understand the meaning. It's simply but beautiful written, and I think his other book goes the same advice, but that one is more romantic, The Broken Wings, and this one is more live and more advice related. But I think everyone can and should read it. It's very, very good. So I gave it, like I said, 5 stars, and I hope to reread it maybe next year and to see what news I would find in it and what I had missed the first time that I've read it. So, and because it's such a beautiful book, I would read one more passage to you guys. This someone else asked the advice of the prophet about self-knowledge, and again you have like a 1.5 page of advice, written very poetically, very aspiring, and at the end it says, "Say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path, for the soul walks upon all paths. The soul walks not upon a line, neither does it grow like a reed. The soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals." That's just so romantic. So I don't know. I really, really liked reading this book. Again, very, very nice. And the next book is the same sort of atmosphere, the same sort of vibe around the book. So my whole summer was reading this kind of books, and then I moved on to Hermann Hesse with the book Siddhartha. So this one is also very famous. I think this is the first book that I've read from all of these writers. The same goes for Hermann Hesse. I have never read any other books from him. I know that Steppenwolf is also a very famous one, but Siddhartha, I think, well, when you talk about Hermann Hesse, most people mention this book. And it's, again, very small, so it was very easy to read in a day. I think I, again, finished it in a day or two. And this one takes place in India. Yes, in India. And the other one from the prophet took place like in this non-existing place, so it was more fictional, and this one takes place in India. And I feel like they are comparable to each other. So this was written in 1922 and this one in 1923. I don't know if both writers knew each other or knew of each other, but I think they have the same sort of feeling around them, same sort of spiritual vibe. So this is about a young boy named Siddhartha, who is the son of a Brahmin. Do I say it correct? Yes, Brahmin. And Brahmins, but as I understand, Brahmins are these higher monks who are living in India, and they do a lot of meditation, a lot of working on their soul, on their belief, on their religion. So Siddhartha is a very smart young boy who is good at everything. Everyone loves him. The whole village loves him. His best friend loves him. His parents are very proud of him. And he's really, really good in becoming a Brahmin himself. But he is very motivated and he achieves everything. But then he stops having the interest in that certain, like becoming a Brahmin. He loses interest in that because it's just too easy for him and he wants more, and he has this feeling that he didn't achieve what he should achieve. So he goes on the spiritual journey to find a higher purpose, to find, as they say here, setting out on a spiritual journey to discover a higher state of being. His quest leads him through the temptations of luxury, wealth, the pleasures of sensual love, the sinister threat of death dealing snakes, until eventually he comes to a river. So yeah, it's a very it's even though it's a small book, there's a lot of things happening going on with him, and he meets a lot of new people, new beliefs or new ideas, and he reflects on that and moves on. And yeah, I again, it's very calming. It's very um, just nice to read it and think about all the things that are being said. There are some things that stood out to me. Again, let me see if it's interesting for you too, guys. This one is very nice. At least I found it very nice. Wisdom is not communicable. The wisdom which is a wise man tries to the wisdom which a wise man tries to communicate always sounds foolish. So that's one of the things that he's trying to say in this book, is that you cannot learn wisdom. You can only experience things. You can listen to other people and then make your own reflection of it and see if it's something that is needed for you. So you cannot be a wise man by just listening to what other people are saying, by just following other religions, other ideas when it's not right for you. Then it's not wisdom. And when you try to sell wisdom or to teach wisdom, you just sound foolish. So I really enjoy that idea because I think he's right about that. And yeah, again, I think if I would recommend a book, this one is a little bit more out there. You really have to like this kind of books to read it, but I think The Prophet is manageable for everyone. Everyone can read this and enjoy it, and this one is a little bit more spiritual. And for me, it's the first time that I read this kind of books, and I love them both. So the next book that I'm going to discuss is from a Dutch writer, and it's a very new one. It just came out this year in 2021, and it's from Hanne Barefoot, and it's called Wat wij zagen, which means what we have seen. So this is I don't read a lot of Dutch literature. It's because I like translated literature more. I like literature from other countries just more. So Russian, English, Japanese, Korean, it doesn't matter, but I just don't read a lot of Dutch literature. So I cannot give you a very good opinion about Dutch literature in general, but this book, I just didn't love it so much. But I do think it's a very interesting subject that this book is discussing. So you're following this girl named Kaylee, and she has financial problems, so she has to find a new job. And one of the jobs that she can choose from, because she doesn't really have a degree that she can find work in, she has to rely on jobs like in a call center, so working for companies and calling up people, trying to sell things, jobs like that. Pretty hard jobs where you don't get paid much and where people are not always nice to you. So she already has worked in that kind of jobs, and now she found this new job, which is being a moderator for a big platform like Facebook or YouTube, where you have to look at all kinds of videos, pictures, text, chat rooms, and see if something illegal is happening. See if especially when someone like flags a video and says, well, something's going on in the video that's not right. She has to, with all the people, of course, at the company, they have to look at the video, the entire video, and see if something's going on. And then there are all these rules that they have to follow. So if it's a political statement, then it's okay. But if it's not, and there's violence, then they have to give like a warning, or if there's something else going on, they have to take the entire video down. So that kind of work. And at first it sounds pretty good, because it pays a lot, and because it's less difficult because you don't have to deal with people on the phone. You're just watching videos or looking at pictures, so it sounds easier. But then you realize that this job comes with a lot of difficult things too. So you have to look at things that you don't want to look at. And because it's quite a new job, as you can imagine, 20 years ago we didn't have this kind of jobs because we didn't have all of those platforms that we do have now. Internet is a big part of our life, a big part of the society, and that's what this book is about. Actually, how internet is like an open world where a lot of people can post things, say things. Like I'm making this video right now, and someone else is maybe also making a video, which is, I'm sorry for the sound, which is illegal, and someone has to look at it and see if it's okay. Maybe someone has to look at my video and see if it's okay. I don't know. I don't know much about that kind of jobs, but this book talks about the problems behind these jobs. And at the end of the book, which I found very interesting to see, I haven't looked at everything, but the writer mentions all of the books and literature that you can look up about this subject. This book has won a prize in the Netherlands, and even though I liked the subject because it's original, it's new, it's I think very interesting in our time and very needed maybe in our time, I didn't like the character. Again, I didn't like the character development. I didn't like the characters at all. I think you don't know much about Kaylee. You don't know much about her personal life, but then you read all about her problems, and especially her problems getting worse because of this job. But I just couldn't sympathize with her, and the colleagues that she describes. Again, there's so few descriptions that you just don't get to know them. And then the book is over, and this interesting subject is started, but it feels not finished, you know. So that's why I give this book a rating of 3, and I think I honestly wanted to give it a 2, 2 stars, 2 points. But the only reason why I gave it 3 stars is because I think the subject is interesting and very of our time right now, so very needed in this time. that's why. So moving on, we have 2 more books, and the next book that I'm going to talk about, I'm very excited about it, and it's something entirely different from all the books that I have discussed so far, because this is non-fiction. All the others were of course fiction, and this one is Dead Mountain, the untold true story of the Dyatlov Pass incident by Donny HR. And as you can see, I loved it. There are a lot of things that I wanted to remember, wanted to come back to. Maybe I will reread it again. But what is the Dyatlov incident? If you don't know, the Dyatlov Pass incident is this incident that has happened in the USSR, so in the former Soviet Union, former Russia. And it's an incident that took place in the Ural Mountains. To say it right, it took place in the Otorten Mountain, which is in the Ural Mountains area, northern Ural. And it's about this group of hikers, 10 students from a technical university who went on a hike, and they were quite experienced hikers. And they didn't come back, so that someone went looking, of course, for them, and first they couldn't find them, but then they found them. And the way that they died was very strange. They couldn't explain it at that time, and still today there are a lot of theories and a lot of speculations about their death. So even until now, I think there is not a clear answer what has happened to them. And it's quite a infamous incident. I think a lot of people who are interested in this kind of things, they know about it. But this is the first book that I have seen that was written by an American documentary maker. So it was a little bit different. Most of the time it's written by Russian people, and I've seen some Russian documentaries about this incident, but this is the first time that an American went to Russia to I think it's the first time that an American went to Russia to really investigate this, and has interviewed a lot of Russian people that lived in the town nearby that the students are from, and also he interviewed some of the people that really knew much about this incident and knew the people who were eventually found and were dead. So what makes this book so great? So the first thing is because this man, Donny HR, he really did his research. He went 2 times to Russia. He walked the whole route to the Dyatlov Pass. He experienced it himself, and it is a very difficult path because, especially in the winter, and he did it in the winter too, just like the students. But it's very difficult path because it's like at that time it was a hike class 3, so one of the highest hiking routes, and especially in the winter, most of the time they say just don't go there in the winter because it's too difficult, it's too dangerous. And he went anyway, just like the students, and he did it. Of course, he took a little of shortcuts because in the time that this happens in 1959, there were like a lot less resources. So the students didn't have radio communication. They didn't had all that kind of equipment that you can buy right now. So, but they were experienced hikers, and the way they died was very, very strange for people who have hiked all the time. So to paint a picture, which Donny does very well in this book, it's Soviet Union, it's communism, 1959. This group of students, 10 students, go to a hiking trip in the winter. All of them between 20, 25 years old, with one person who is older. I think he's above 30 years. And in that time, radio communication wasn't available because that was forbidden. So they couldn't take any radio with them, any walkie-talkies, I don't know. And also, hiking was one of the popular sports at that time. So because there wasn't much else to do at the university in the breaks, in the summer vacations and the winter vacations, most people did sports or went back to the families. And these were very athletic students, and they did hiking in the summertime, in the wintertime, didn't matter. And this was the hike that would elevate them above all other hikers. So if they would pass this hike, they would get a higher ranking in the whole sport of hiking. I don't know if that makes sense. So it meant a lot to them. And I think Donny paints the picture very well in the book, how the dynamics were between the group members. They were very good friends, and they knew each other for years. They went on hiking with each other for years, and he shows a lot of diary fragments of the students. He also shows all of their pictures, which is very, I don't know, sometimes hard to look at because you see them very happy the whole trip, and then of course they don't make it back. He shows a lot of pictures of the area where they were hiking, and it looks very scary. I wouldn't go hiking there, but I understand that some people find it very beautiful and nice to do. And here you see the map of the whole area that they went to. So this whole book is made out of pictures and interesting diary fragments of the students. You really, at the end of the book, you feel like you know them. You really know them, and that's what I was missing in some of the older books that I gave 3 stars. This kind of engagement with the characters. You at the end of the book, you're like always crying because something happens to them. So I think he did a great job doing that. And at the end of the book, he gives his own theory of what might have happened to them, which is a very new, I think, an original theory. There are a lot of speculations, a lot of theories, and this is the first one of which I think, well, that might have happened. I don't know it for sure. He did it with a lot of respect to the victims, to the families, but he told, I think, almost everything that there is to tell. And his theory on the end, it's it's I think very realistic. That might have happened. So I would, again, if you like nonfiction, if you like reading about mountains and incident in the mountains, and also maybe about Russia at the time, I think this book is great. And yeah, I think it's gives you another perspective on the whole Dyatlov incident. If you're already familiar with the Dyatlov incident and you've watched maybe the movie, or there's also, I think, a show about it, I think this book gives another perspective, and I think a better perspective. And again, there are some things that I found very nice that he wrote about the Russian spirit or the Russian traditions. He did also, I don't know, he did try to understand how the people at that time were living. And one of the things he wrote I found very beautiful. Like I said, you have to understand it was a time where communism was the regime and a lot of things were forbidden. So one of like things like movies, writers, poets, certain books, of course. So here he's talking about how the student group liked to sing songs and tell each other all kinds of poems, and some poems were forbidden. So poetry lovers living in the Soviet Union would had to memorize poems such as this one, as it was difficult to find Yesenin's work in print. You couldn't read his books, Yudin explains. They were forbidden. You couldn't buy them anywhere, but even though he was forbidden, as were many other poets and writers, somehow we managed to have conversations about him. And I think that's very nicely said about the Russian people. Even though it's forbidden, they're still going to do it, because how can you forbid books and poets? I mean, that's just horrible. And yeah, the people found a way around it and still were listening to the music, were singing the songs that you couldn't, of course, sing everywhere. And I think that's why the hiking sport was so beloved, because you were in the nature, you were with your friends, and you could be yourself and doing things that you maybe couldn't do in the city or at the university. So I gave it 5 stars. I would recommend it to anyone. Actually, I have recommended it to a couple of family members, and at my work I have given it to a colleague. So I'm just going on and recommending this book to anyone, because yeah, I think it's one of the gems that I found this year, that talked about a tragic event, but in such a good way, with such respect for the culture and for the of course the people, the family. There's not a lot of family members, I think, left, but some people who are left and who had known the hikers at the time, they worked to achieve this book. Actually, they helped Donnie a lot to get all the information, and and he worked very hard to translate all of the information because he didn't know any Russian. So yeah, I would stop because I have told enough, I think, but I love this book. And then the last book that I have read in August is the only book that I've finished in August, and it's a Japanese book by Hiromi Kawakami, Strange Weather in Tokyo. And it's one of the it's the only romance book that I have read. I don't read a lot of romance, but I again I heard a lot of good things about this book, and I wanted to try it out. And I gave it 3.5 stars. Again, it just wasn't for me, I think, but I did like some parts of it. So it took place in Tokyo, and it's about this woman who is like in her 30s, and she always goes to this bar, and I felt like that was her only hobby, was drinking. So every time after work she would go to this bar and she would drink. and that was her day. And she would always sit alone until she finds. I'm not spoiling too much. No. So her name is Tukiko, and I will just read the backside. Overnight, when she's drinking alone at the local bar, like she always does, Tukiko finds herself sitting next to her former high school teacher. And the rest of the book, she doesn't really know his name, and she calls him the whole time Sensei, which means teacher. I thought it was pretty romantic at some way because it's in Japanese. Sensei sounds very beautiful. I think it's a beautiful word. So the whole time she's calling him that, and he's calling her, of course, Tsukiko. And there were some interesting parts of the book. So they weren't all again on hiking. And some weird things started happening, which I found it was very good written. Like very suspenseful. And then again, nothing. So the rest of the book, it was a little bit boring. And then at the end, it started getting not suspenseful, but it started getting interesting again. And the romance started getting interesting. But then again, it I don't know. It says that here Tsukiko and her teacher develop a hesitant intimacy that tilts awkwardly and pointedly towards love. Well, it was very awkward for sure. So at the end of the book, I did enjoy it. Some parts in the middle I did enjoy, but overall the whole story, it wasn't very memorable for me. I don't read a lot of romance, so maybe that's one of the points. But it wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. So 3.5, I think it's an honest mark for this book. The Japanese title is Sensei no Kaban, and that means the briefcase of the teacher, which I found a better title for the book because it suits the story more, but they called it in Strange Weather in Tokyo in the translation. I don't know why. I just can't relate this title to the story, but it does sound interesting. It just, in my opinion, has nothing to do with the story. So Sensei no Kaban is more related to the story, I think. Okay, those were all the books that I finished in the summer, but the whole time that I was reading this kind of pretty small, not too big books, pretty small books, I have also been reading a very big book, more than I think 1400 pages, and it's Stephen King's It. So I think some books of Stephen King's are kind of his classics, like his older books, and not all of these older books, but some of them are classics. And I think The Shining, It, Pet Cemetery, maybe of course The Stand, I think, and maybe some other books. I think they're like his classics, and if you love Stephen King, you should have read them at least someday. And last year I have read The Shining, which I loved. Very good. Pet Cemetery is one of my favorite books. But the two books that are the most thick are It and The Stand, and which I have both not read yet. So this year I wanted to read It, and I have started it in May, I think. Yes, and the whole summer I was reading it, and it was very nice to read it in the summer because the most part of the story, I think, yeah, is in the summer period. So when you're getting to know the characters of the boys, but also when they come back as adults in the book, it's all about the summer and what have happened in the summer. So it was very nice to read it in the summer, but I'm still not done. I have 200 pages or something to go. But it's nothing compared with everything that I have read so far. So yeah, 200 pages. I hope to finish it this week. I say it a couple of weeks now, but I hope to finish it this week. And because I have a lot of other books that I want to read in September. And so far, I have really liked it. I think the last 200 pages will also be very nice. I like the story, I like the writing style, I like the character development. There were some things that are also, people say that the book is too long and that some things weren't necessary in the book, but so far I didn't really encounter unnecessary things. So I enjoyed the history of Derry, the town that it takes place in. I enjoyed like all of the different characteristics of the boys, and also of the girl from the Losers Club that are actually the main characters. And yeah, so far there's nothing that I would say, well, that's too long or too much of explanations. There are some things that are very difficult to read because they are very like heavy subjects, or very, there are some horrible parts, horrible racist parts, horrible um, parts about bullying, about aggression, using people. So there's a lot of aggression and racism going on in the book. So that's kind of difficult to read. And but I think that makes the story stronger because you see in the time that the story takes place in, you see what kind of things were going on and what kind of trouble some people and some children had. So I think Stephen King is always good in sketching the time period, but also how people interact with each other. So far, I have been very liking it. I just hope to finish it soon because, yeah, I want to know how it ends. Of course, I have seen the movies and I know what the story is about. I think most people know about it. That's about this clown, but I think the ending is pretty good. I heard from everyone that it's a very good ending, and some people always say that Stephen King can write endings, but that this one is very nice. I don't agree actually. I think Stephen King has some great endings, but some books are just, yeah, there are books that are a little bit too long before the ending comes, which makes it less suspenseful and enjoyable. But so far not with this one. So I've been very loving it. I think I will discuss it further in my September wrap up because I will finish it in September, hopefully. But that's why I have all my other books that I've read are quite small because, yeah, the whole time besides those books I was also reading this. And as you can see, I've used a lot of different colors because I am tracking a lot of different things in this book. So far, I would recommend it to anyone who likes Stephen King and I was like, I want to read it, but it's too long. Just start reading it, and you can take as long as you want. I know I'm reading very slowly now with this book, and it would be maybe nicer if I had more time and could read it like in a month or so. But yeah, it's okay to do longer over your reading. That was everything about the books from the summer. I have a list of books that I want to read in autumn, divided in like books for September, October, November. So I think I will make a video about that too. My autumn TBR. I have some specific books that I really want to finish, and also I just want to read a little bit more because this year I wanted to read 50 books. That was my Goodreads goal, and so far I'm a little bit behind. So I need to step up and read more. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice weekend, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.